Tahniah! Secara langsung ini dibawakan khas kepada anda oleh Akademi YouTuber Malaysia. Sebuah inisiatif e-didik Malaysia dan Kelab Guru Malaysia. Tumpukan perhatian anda. Secara langsung akan bermula sebentar lagi. Link sijil akan diberikan di hujung siaran ini. Pastikan diisi dalam tempoh yang ditetapkan. Terima kasih.
Hai, apa khabar semua? Salam sejahtera dan selamat datang ke Pusat Tuisyen Online, Akademi YouTuber Pusat Tuisyen Percuma yang pertama di Malaysia. Bermula percuma, selama-lamanya percuma. Saya Madam Lee yang berperanan sebagai moderator untuk sesi live hari ini. Untuk makluman, live ini adalah bersiaran daripada channel Madam Fizi. Berikut adalah ahli-ahli dalam konti kita hari ini. Antara dia adalah presenter kita, Madam Fizi. Okay, diikuti dengan host controller, Cikgu Yi. Dan pemerhati dia adalah Cikgu Yati. Berikut merupakan perkara-perkara yang peserta perlu ambil perhatian. Sila gunakan gambar profil yang bersesuaian dan tutur bahasa yang sopan di ruangan chat. Sila on kamera dan mic jikalau anda dipilih untuk naik ke ruang studio bersama dengan presenter. Sila tumpukan perhatian terhadap presenter dan hanya menggunakan ruangan chat untuk menjawab soalan atau jika adanya soalan yang ingin ditujukan. Akademi YouTuber akan memberi mata kredit atau mata ganjaran kepada pelajar yang mengikuti kelas AYU. Nanti Madam akan umumkan nombor kelas satu persatu ikut tempoh yang telah ditetapkan. Pelajar dilarang menulis nombor berkenaan pada ruangan chat. Sila fokus dan buat catatan sendiri. Kemudian isi pada borang rekod mata kredit yang akan dikongsikan melalui ruangan chat. Pada akhir siaran ini, link e-sijil akan diberikan dan anda hanya mempunyai 30 minit sahaja untuk mengisi maklumat anda. Sila pastikan bahawa anda menggunakan sama ada email e-titik ataupun MOE delima sahaja. Sekarang saya akan perkenalkan presenter kita hari ini dengan lebih mendalam. Nama penuh beliau adalah Azmazatu Yusfizati binti Muhammad Yusof. Beliau mengajar di Kolej Matrikulasi Negeri 9. Mata pelajaran yang diajar adalah Perakaunan. Pengalaman mengajar beliau adalah selama 18 tahun. Ini adalah siri kelas tuisyen yang ke-16 bagi Madam Fizi dan tajuk yang akan diajar pada hari ini adalah Accounting for Receivables. Sebelum kita mula pembelajaran hari ini, Madam akan umumkan mata kredit dia. Diminta para pelajar beri perhatian. Huruf dan nombor dia adalah A6. Saya ulang, A6. Tanpa membuang masa lagi, saya serahkan kelas kita kepada Madam Fizi. Dipersilakan.
Okey, terima kasih Madam Lee. Ya, so saya perkenalkan. Tadi dah diperkenalkan kan ahli-ahli dalam konti kita. Moderator kita Madam Lee. Control host Miss Yi dan juga pemerhati kita Cikgu Yati. Okay, so Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan selamat sejahtera. Okay, so saya rasa kita start terus ya kelas kita pada hari ini. Okay, saya akan share screen. Okay. Okay, semua nampak Okay. So sebelum tu, sekejap. Okay. So sebelum tu saya nak perkenalkan diri saya. Ya, tadi Madam Lee pun dah perkenalkan. Okay, my name is Puan Azmazatul Yusfiziati binti Muhammad Yusof, or you can call me Madam Fizi. and I'm from College Matrikulasi Negeri Sembilan. Okay, my professional qualification, okay, I got my degree in Accounting Honours in UUM, and then Master in Accounting in UKM. And I am also member of Malaysian Institute of Accountants, MIA, since 1999. Okay, so my channel is Madam Fizi channel. Okay, kalau awak suka ya dengan pembelajaran kita hari ini, so please subscribe, like and share. Okay, so ini adalah Madam punya YouTube channel. Okay, ataupun awak boleh scan QR code ya untuk ke channel Madam. Okay, so seterusnya ya Madam nak perkenalkan ahli konti. Ini adalah perakaunan, ini adalah panitia perakaunan dan ekonomi Melayu. Okey, Madam dan juga Cikgu Yati mengajar accounting. Manakala Cikgu Lee, yang Madam Lee tadi moderator, and Cikgu Yi, control host tadi adalah pengajar mengajar ekonomi. Okey. So Madam Lee ni matrikulasi, Madam Yi tingkatan 6 ya. Okey, saya dengan Cikgu Yati daripada Kolej Matrikulasi Negeri Sembilan. Okey, kami adalah ahli kumpulan ahli Akademi YouTuber Malaysia untuk Melayu. Ya. Okey, so selain daripada panitia ekonomi dan juga accounting, kita juga ada panitia biologi, okey, yang diketuai oleh Cikgu Faiza. And then kita juga ada fizik diketuai oleh Madam Rosmaya. And then fizik, okay, lead by Cikgu Shahnun from Matrikulasi Penang. And also we have Mathematics T, okay, lead by Teacher Ib. Okay, so we are Academy YouTuber Malaysia. Okay, so topic for today is topic 7, accounting for receivable. Okay, so in this topic we will discuss definition of accounts receivable, valuation of accounts receivable, bad debt. Okay, and then accounting method for bad debt. Those are direct write-off method and allowance method. And then recovery of bad debt. And lastly, presentation of account receivable in financial position. Okay, so let us start with definition of accounts receivable. Okay, Madam percaya awak semua faham kan what is the meaning of accounts receivable. So accounts receivable refers to money owed by customer to our business in exchange for goods or services that have been delivered or used but not yet paid. Okay, maksudnya account receivable adalah sejumlah wang yang dihutang oleh klien kita atau customer kita setelah kita bagi servis perkhidmatan ataupun barang ya telah dihantar kepada customer tersebut. Tapi mereka belum bayar lagi kepada kita. So itu namanya account belum terima or accounts receivable. So accounts receivable is collected within a credit terms. That means hutang kan? Hutang, so it has a credit terms. Okay, after this kita akan tengok apa dia credit terms ya. So credit terms indicate when payment is due for sales made on credit. It is normally in terms of 30 or 60 days. So credit terms ni syarat lah, syarat hutang yang telah dilakukan. Yeah. Okay. So next, okay, example that involve accounts receivable. Okay. So for example, sales on credit amounted RM2,000 to Encik Ashraf Syafiq with credit terms 2/10 and /30 on 1st July 2021. Okay, so credit terms dekat sini is 2/10 and /30. Okay, I'm sure that you already know what is the meaning by 2/10 and /30. Okay, apa maksud 2/10? 2/10 means 2% discount kita akan beri kepada customer jika mereka bayar dalam masa 10 hari. Itu maksud 2/10. Okay. And then N/30 bermaksud apa? Okay. Jumlah yang dihutang tersebut perlulah dibayar dalam masa 30 hari. Okay. So itu maksud 2/10 N/30. Okay. So referring to the example above, Encik Ashraf Syafiq is classified as a debtor or accounts receivable starting from the date of sales on credit is made. So maksudnya kita nak kira credit terms tu start bila? Start pada hari jualan. Tarikh jualan tersebut, okay, kita dah start kira sebagai credit terms. Okay, so kalau awak nampak ada credit terms, itu bermaksud hutang. So jualan tersebut adalah secara hutang ataupun secara kredit. Okay, next kita tengok what is a bad debt. Hutang lapuk. Bad debt in BM is hutang lapuk. Okay, when a debtor is unable to pay his debt after the due date of credit terms with certain period, the accounts receivable, that is the uncollectible account, will be classified as bad debt. Maksudnya, jika debtor tersebut tidak dapat bayar hutang selepas credit terms yang kita nyatakan tadi, tadi apa? N/30, okay, after 30 days, kita boleh declare atau kita boleh classify as bad debt. Hutang lapuk. Maksudnya hutang yang tidak dapat dibayar. Okay. Okay, so bad debt, accounts receivable that is not collectible after the due date of credit terms. Okay, what is the cause of bad terms? Bad debts, So bad debt, okay, disebabkan oleh apa? Okay, firstly, bankruptcy of a debtor. Maksudnya debtor tu bankrupt. Okay, bila bankrupt, dia telah di bawah undang-undang, dia tidak perlu membayar hutang. So hutang dia kita boleh classify as hutang lapuk or bad debt. Okay, secondly, the debtor is insane. Insane tu maksudnya tidak siuman. Kalau dia tidak siuman, so dia tidak perlu membayar hutang. Tidak siuman tu kan dia ada di bawah undang-undang juga. Dia tak perlu bayar hutang dan banyaklah lesen dia ni kalau tidak siuman. Okay, thirdly, because the death of the debtors. Jika debtor telah meninggal and then tiada waris untuk membayar hutang, so we can classify as bad debt. And then the debtor cannot be traced. Maksudnya debtor kita tak dapat cari. Kita tak dapat kenal pasti di mana dia berada. Okay, dia hilang ke, missing ke, kita tak tahu dekat mana. Cannot be traced. So the debt we can classify as a bad debt. Okay, so bad debt is recorded as a bad debt expenses. Okay, belanja hutang lapuk. Under operating expenses in the statement of comprehensive income or statement of profit or loss. Okay, so bad debt ni adalah expenses, belanja. Okay, so valuation of accounts receivable. Okay, in the statement of financial position, account receivable is recorded at a net realizable value as follows. Okay, what is the meaning of net realizable value? Okay, so dalam financial position in asset, okay, so account receivable in asset, right? So let's say this is the title, okay, financial position partly. as at 30th June 2021. Okay. Okay, let's say we have account receivable 120,000, and then under allowance method, okay, we have to deduct allowance for doubtful debt. For example, 10,000. So, okay, the balance is 110,000. This is what we call as net realizable value ataupun in BM nilai boleh rilis. Okay, this one if we use allowance method. Yeah, allowance method, so we have to deduct with accounts receivable. So 110,000 is net realizable value. Okay, next. Okay, so bad debt expenses is shown in statement of income. Sebab dia expenses kan. So it is shown in statement of income and it follows expenses recognition principle and revenue recognition principle. So it follows two principle. One is expenses recognition and the other one is revenue recognition. So when? Yeah, bila? So increment in the allowance for doubtful debt, okay, that is a bad debt expenses, follows the expenses recognition principle. Okay, so if there is increment in allowance for doubtful debt, that is bad debt expenses. So it follows expenses recognition principle. While revenue recognition principle, when reduction in the allowance for doubtful debt. Okay, so nanti kita akan tengok what is the meaning by reduction in the allowance for doubtful debt. Yeah. So reduction in allowance for doubtful debt follows the revenue recognition principle. Okay, maksudnya dekat allowance for doubtful debt ni boleh jadi expenses, boleh jadi revenue. Okay, nanti lepas ni kita akan tengok what is the meaning. Okay. Okay, so we continue. Accounting method for bad debt. Okay, so it is divided into two methods. Yeah, accounting method for bad debt. Firstly is direct write-off method or BM kaedah hapus kira langsung. And secondly is allowance method. Okay, in allowance method we have divide into two. Okay, those are firstly percentage of balance of accounts receivable and secondly is percentage on sales basis. Okay, now we look at direct write-off method first. Okay, hapus kira langsung ya kaedah. Okay, so direct write-off method means uncollectible account. Uncollectible account ni maksudnya apa? Akaun yang tidak dapat dikutip, ya, akaun receivable yang tidak dapat dikutip, determined by management to be written off directly from accounts receivable. Maksudnya, if you using the direct write-off method, kita terus write off the account receivable. Okay, kita written off directly from accounts receivable. Bagi yang account receivable yang tidak dapat dikutip. Okay. So, for journal entry, okay, to record the bad debt using direct write-off method, okay, debit bad debt expenses, kita terus declare sebagai bad debt expenses and credit apa? Credit accounts receivable. Sebab apa? Sebab kita terus write off the accounts receivable directly. Okay. So this is the journal entry if we using the direct write-off method to record bad debt expenses. Okay. Okay, and then
Fizi.
Yeah.
Okay, maaf ganggunya, nak bagi mata kredit kepada pelajar. Okay, para pelajar diminta beri perhatian, nombor yang seterusnya adalah 8. Saya ulang, nombor yang seterusnya adalah 8. Terima kasih.
Okay, thank you Madam Lee. Okay, now we continue. Okay, we continue with example 1. On December 31st, 2020, the balance of account receivable in City Entertainment is 148,000 RM. As at the date, a debtor named Ali is unable to pay his debt amounted to 4,800. Okay, so in this example, dia tak ada mention about allowance method. So it is a direct write-off method. Okay, so required record the transaction into journal entry. Okay, so debit, bad debt expenses 4,800 and credit, account receivable Ali 4,800. So the narration is to record bad debt expenses. Okay. Okay, so the second method is allowance method. Okay, macam yang kita cakap tadi, allowance method is divided into two. Those are percentage on balance of accounts receivable basis and the other one is percentage on sales basis. Okay, di mana percentage on sales basis is divided into credit sales and net credit sales. Okay, now we will look one by one. Okay, first of all, we look at allowance method. What is the meaning by allowance method? Okay, some books using provision method. Sama je Maksudnya in BM, dia adalah kaedah peruntukan. If we said about provision or peruntukan, it means estimated. Maksudnya kita anggarkan. So estimated uncollectible accounts become bad debt on the basis of tadi ada dua, percentage on the balance of account receivable and percentage of sales. Okay. So maksud allowance di sini adalah peruntukan. That is sama juga maksud dengan estimated uncollectible. Maksudnya kita anggarkan berapakah accounts yang tidak dapat dikutip. Okay, so bad debt expenses is to be matched with doubtful debt accounts. Okay, so allowance for doubtful debt contradict with accounts receivable in the statement of financial position. Okay, ni macam kita tunjuk tadi. Di mana allowance for doubtful debt kita akan tolak dengan account receivable dalam statement of financial position. Okay, so how to record a bad debt expenses? Okay, macam kita tengok tadi, for direct write-off method, yang first method tadi is debit bad debt expenses and credit account receivable. Okay, but for allowance method, okay, kita debit bad debt expenses and credit allowance for doubtful debt. So perbezaan di dekat mana? Dekat bahagian kredit antara direct write-off method and allowance method. Okay, so next kita akan tengok percentage on the balance of accounts receivable basis dulu. Okay, so dekat sini kita ada mention account receivable basis. So kita akan tengok the balance of account receivable basis using the percentage. Okay, so the percentage dia akan bagilah dalam soalan. Okay, so what is the formula? Percentage of allowance. This percentage akan dibagi dalam soalan. Okay, multiply by closing balance of account receivable. Closing balance maksudnya balance carry forward. So equals to closing balance of allowance for doubtful debt. So this formula belum dapat lagi bad debt. Kita baru dapat allowance for doubtful debt. So untuk kira to calculate the bad debt, okay, there are a few steps. Okay, so the first step yang ini. Kita kira dulu the percentage multiply by the closing account receivable dapat closing allowance for doubtful debt. So this is the first step. Okay, so untuk dapatkan bad debt expenses, okay, there are a few steps. Okay, firstly tadi, first step yang tadi, calculate closing balance of allowance for doubtful debt. Secondly, draw T accounts for allowance for doubtful debt. And then thirdly, we fill in all particulars or transaction in the T accounts. For example, balance brought forward, balance carry forward, okay, and others lah, whatever related to the transaction. And the fourth step, barulah kita dapat bad debt expenses. Okay, that is the missing figure at the T accounts. Okay, so kita akan tengok the example. So example 2, percentage on the balance of account receivable method. Okay, so for example, the balance brought forward for allowance for doubtful debt is 500. The balance carry forward for account receivable is 110,000. And estimated uncollectible debt is 1% of accounts receivable. Okay. So first step kita buat apa? First step, kita kira balance carry forward of AFDD. Okay, AFDD tu allowance for doubtful debt. So percentage of allowance multiply by closing balance of account receivable, okay, equals to closing balance for allowance for doubtful debt. Okay, so the percentage is 1%, okay, multiply by closing balance of account receivable mana? 110,000, okay, so equals to 1,100. So 1,100 is the closing balance for AFDD. Okay, so the second step kita buat apa? Okay, so second step kita buat account T. Okay, so please focus on the account T. Okay, how to prepare the T account for allowance for doubtful debt. So this T account is for allowance for doubtful debt. So firstly, okay, third step kita kena fill in the T accounts kan. Okay, so firstly, we write down the balance brought forward first. That is 500 from the question. And then, secondly, okay, we write down the balance carry forward. That is 1,100. That is from the first step yang kita kira tadi, yang formula tadi. Okay, and then third step kita buat apa? Okay, dah tak ada apa-apa transaction, kita balancekan dia left and right. So we pick the bigger amount that is on the debit side, 1,100 left and right, debit and credit 1,100. So there is a missing figure in the credit. In credit, okay, so the fourth step is to calculate what is the missing figure. So the missing figure is here, okay, so how much? 600. So what is the 600? So the 600 is bad debt expenses. This is the fourth step. Okay, so I hope you will remember the step to calculate bad debt expenses. Okay, lepas ni you boleh tengok balik this video, Okay. Okay, so what is the
Madam Fizi, kita rehat sebentar dan beri laluan kepada iklannya.
Okay.
Berita baik untuk semua. Kini Akademi YouTuber memperkenalkan sistem mata ganjaran kredit AYU untuk dikumpul. Jom ikuti kelas tuition live AYU untuk mengumpul kredit AYU dan berpeluang menebus hadiah-hadiah yang menarik. Hadiah bernilai lebih RM10,000 disediakan secara percuma untuk pelajar seluruh Malaysia. Apa tunggu lagi? Tebus ganjaran hebat ini sekarang. Layari www.academyyoutuber.com untuk maklumat lanjut.
Okey, selamat kembali semula. Madam akan umumkan mata kredit sekarang ya. Nombor dia adalah 7. Saya ulang, nombor dia adalah 7. Okey, kita teruskan kelas kita. Kita akan teruskan dengan kelas kita ya. Dipersilakan Madam Fizi.
Okay, thank you Madam Lee. Okay, now we shall continue our lesson. Okay, sekejap. Okay, so we continue with the journal entry, how to record the bad debt expenses using allowance method, that is using the percentage of balance of accounts receivable. Just now we already calculate and we get 600, dia punya bad debt is 600. So debit bad debt expenses 600 and credit allowance for doubtful debt. Okay, this is the allowance method. Yeah, this is the journal entry for allowance method. So we get 600. Okay, the narration is to record the bad debt expenses. Okay, now we look at example 3. Okay, still in the allowance method for percentage on balance of accounts receivable. But this one, okay, the balance brought forward for allowance for doubtful debt is 1,500. Yang lain sama So the first step is we calculate percentage of allowance, that is 1%, multiply with the balance account receivable is 110,000, so equals to 1,100. Okay, so the second step kita buat apa? Okay, remember the balance brought forward is 1,500. Contoh example 2 tadi, the balance brought forward is 500. Okay, now we look at apa jadi is the balance brought forward is 1,500. Okay, so this is the first step. The second step is kita buat apa? Kita buat account T. Kan? Okay, so this is the account T for allowance for doubtful debt. Okay, so the third step is to we fill in all the information in the T accounts. Okay, so firstly kita tulis dulu the balance brought forward, that is 1,500, and then the secondly kita tulis the balance carry forward, that is from the formula just now, that is 1,100. Okay, if tak ada apa-apa transaction, so kita balancekan dia left and right. Okay, now the bigger amount is at the credit side, 1,500. So you write down 1,500 left and right. That's mean debit and credit. So we get missing figure in debit side. Betul tak? Okay, so the missing figure now is at the debit side. Just now the example is at the credit side. Now is at the debit side. So how much? Okay, berapa missing figure dia? That is 400. So what is the account for the 400? Is it bad debt expenses? No. Yeah. Kalau dekat sebelah kredit, dia adalah bad debt expenses. But at the debit side, we call it as decrease in AFDD or decrease in allowance for doubtful debt. Ini yang dekat principal tadi kita tengok kan. Ya, ada reduction and increment. So if decrease in AFDD, okay, so how to write the journal entry? Debit allowance for doubtful debt 400 and credit apa? Decrease in allowance for doubtful debt 400. Okay, that is ada perbezaan in journal entry. Yeah. Okay, so the narration is to record the decreasing in allowance for doubtful debt. So ingat ya student, jika the missing figure is at the credit side, itu bad debt expenses. But if the missing figure is at the debit side, itu adalah decrease in AFDD. Okay, so we finish with percentage of account receivable, and then secondly is percentage on net credit sales basis. Okay, credit sales basis tadi ada dua, satu net credit sales, satu credit sales sahaja. Now we look at the net credit sales. Okay, so the formula is allowance multiply by net credit sales. Sebab kita kan ambil net credit sales basis, so equals to apa? Terus dapat bad debt expenses. Okay, so for credit sales basis is more simpler, is more simple. Okay, terus dapat bad debt expenses. So for sales basis kita tak perlu buka account T for AFDD. Okay, so value of the bad debt expenses is calculated using the above formula, and the net credit sales. What is the meaning by net credit sales? Net credit sales means the total of credit sales deduct sales discount ataupun sales return jika ada. Okay, so we look at the example. Okay, so the balance brought forward for allowance for doubtful debt is 500. The credit sales is 23,000. Sales discount 3,000. So estimate that 2% from the net credit sales in uncollectible. So how to calculate the bad debt expenses? Okay, so the percentage, okay, that is 2% multiplied by net credit sales. Okay, macam mana nak dapat net credit sales? Okay, 23,000 the credit sales. You have to deduct the sales discount 3,000. So you get the net credit sales equals to 20,000. And then terus dapat bad debt expenses 400. Okay, so kita terus dapat bad debt. Tak perlu buka account T. Account T for AFDD, no need in this basis. Okay, so what is the journal entry? Okay, debit, bad debt expenses and credit, allowance for doubtful debt 400. So the narration is to record bad debt expenses. Okay, so for the second one is the percentage of credit sales basis. Tadi net credit sales, ini credit sales sahaja. Okay, that's mean kita tak perlu tolak sales discount ataupun sales return jika ada. Okay, so this is the same example, but how to calculate the bad debt expenses? Okay, sama juga the percentage, that is 2%, okay, multiply by the credit sales. Maksudnya kita ambil je terus 23,000, tak perlu tolak sales discount, okay, and then equals to 460. So this is the bad debt expenses. Okay, so ada different kan? Kalau yang tadi 400, this one is 460. Okay, so what is the journal entry? Okay, sama je. Debit, bad debt expenses and credit, allowance for doubtful debt. But the amount is 460. Okay, the narration is to record bad debt expenses. Okay, so kita dah sentuh the method untuk merecord bad debt. That is two method just now, direct write-off and allowance method. Okay, now we will look at write-off doubtful debt and recovery of bad debt. Okay, firstly we look at to write off doubtful debt, okay, ataupun bad debt expenses write off. Okay, kita ada dua kan? Kita ada two method, that is direct write off method and allowance method. So for direct write-off method, okay, how to write a journal, debit, bad debt expenses and credit, account receivable. Sama saja dia punya catatan journal. Okay, but for allowance method, okay, to write off the bad debt. Apa maksud write off bad debt tu? Okay, for allowance method, mula kita buat peruntukan, betul tak? That is the estimation. Okay, and then bila kita confirm yang dia tak dapat bayar, so kita nak write off. Macam itulah ya maksud dia. Okay, so in allowance method, kita tengok pula if AFDD accounts telah wujud before or if AFDD accounts satu belum wujud, satu telah wujud. Maksudnya baki dia telah ada, satu lagi baki dia belum ada. Okey, kalau belum ada, maksudnya apa? Macam mana kita nak merekod? If belum ada, maksudnya baki brought forward AFDD tak ada lagi. Okey, so maksudnya dia baru nak buat kan? Okay. So the journal entry for bad debt recovery. Ini bad debt recovery. Oh, lain pula dia pergi Okay, sekejap. Ini dah lebih-lebih pula. Okay, sekejap. Kita tengok balik. Dah banyak ni, dah terlepas. Okay, kita tengok balik. If AFDD account does not exist, maksudnya belum ada lagi balance brought forward of AFDD. So, macam mana kita nak catat the journal entry? Debit, bad debt expenses and credit account receivable. Sebab apa? Sebab AFDD account tak wujud lagi. So, kita dia punya catatan journal macam direct write-off method. Okay. Jika telah ada baki awal AFDD exist, maksudnya dia telah menggunakan allowance method before. So, itu bermaksud balance brought forward AFDD is available. Okay, so macam mana kita nak catat the journal? Okay, debit, allowance for doubtful debt and credit accounts receivable. Okay, so ini this is the difference kalau kita merekod allowance method direct write-off, maksudnya bad debt direct write-off ni, okay, if kita using the direct method, the direct write-off method, okay, the catatan macam ni, debit, bad debt expenses, credit, account receivable. If allowance method, debit, allowance for doubtful debt, credit, accounts receivable. Ini maksudnya apa? Kita nak write off the accounts receivable. Sebab apa kita nak write off account receivable? Sebab kita dah confirm yang dia tak dapat bayar, so kita nak write off write off tu maksudnya bukan write off direct, bukannya direct write off method tau. Tu maksudnya kita nak hapuskan the accounts receivable. Okay, so please remember this journal entry. Okay, so this is a bad debt write-off ataupun account receivable write-off. Okay, so next. Okay, now we look at example 4. Okay, allowance for doubtful debt on 1st January 2020 is 3,650. The closing balance account receivable on 31st December 2020 is 240,000. Okay, the bad debt written off for the year 2,000 and the estimated allowance for doubtful debt is 1%. Okay, so this is for example 4. Okay, so you are required to prepare a journal entry to record bad debt written off. Okay, bad debt written off. And secondly, bad debt expenses for the year 2020. Okay, now we look at how to solve the problem. Okay, firstly, you have to recognize which method used. Okay, macam mana kita nak tahu this company is using which method? Okay, sama direct write-off method ke ataupun allowance method. Okay, so awak tengok dekat sini ada berkenaan dengan allowance for doubtful debt. Okay, ada balance brought forward, allowance for doubtful debt. So that means this company is using allowance method. Okay, and then allowance method ada dua kan? Satu account receivable, satu lagi sales. So macam mana kita nak tahu? So kita tengok dekat sini estimated allowance for doubtful debt on the balance of account receivable is 1%. So maksudnya dia guna balance of accounts receivable. Okay, now kita tengok what is the journal entry to record the bad debt written off. Okay, ni tadi yang kita nak kenal pasti which method they are using. Okay, so macam mana yang kita tengok tadi, the journal entry for bad debt write-off, debit, allowance for doubtful debt. Kenapa debit allowance for doubtful debt? Because this company is using the allowance method. And then credit, accounts receivable 2,000. So the narration is to record bad debt written off from AFDD. Okay, and then secondly, dia suruh kira apa tadi? Bad debt expenses kan? Okay. To calculate the bad debt expenses, okay, we have to write a T account for AFDD. Yeah. Tengok. T account for AFDD. Okay, so first step is to write down the balance brought forward. Okay, in the question is 3,650. And then second step kita buat apa? Okay, tadi ada catatan untuk write off, betul tak? 2,000 kan? Okay, so kita letak dulu sebelah debit account receivable 2,000. Okay, ada lagi tak transaction? Jika tak ada, kita tulis balance carry forward. Okay, so balance carry forward macam mana nak dapat? Okay, just now the account receivable is 240,000 and then multiply by the percentage, that is 1%. So kita dapat 2,400. And then the next step is dah tak ada apa-apa lagi transaction. So kita balancekan dia left and right. Okay, so that is the 4,400. So the missing figure is at the credit side. Okay, the credit side. Then kita calculate lah. Okay, dapat berapa? What is the missing figure? 750. So what is the 750? This is bad debt expenses. Okay, barulah kita dapat bad debt expenses. Okay, so kita dah tengok contoh ni dah 2-3 kali setakat ni. Okay, so what is the journal entry? Debit, bad debt expenses and credit, allowance for doubtful debt. Okay, 750. So the narration is to record the bad debt expenses. Okay, so this is for example 4. So next is bad debt recovery. So what is the meaning by bad debt recovery? In BM, hutang lapuk pulih. Okay, what is the meaning by hutang lapuk pulih? Hutang lapuk, lepas tu dia jadi pulih pula. So what is the meaning? Bad debt recovery is the amount of debt that is paid either in full amount or in partial amount after the debt has been written off or classified as bad debt. Okay, maksudnya apa? Bad debt recovery ni kita dah classifykan dia sebagai bad debt ataupun kita dah write off kan dia, tiba-tiba that customer bayar hutang dekat kita. Okay, maksudnya kita dah hapuskan dia punya account dalam company kita, atau kita dah classify as a bad debt but suddenly dia bayar. Tak kira lah dia bayar whether in full amount ataupun sebahagian. So we call it as a bad debt recovery. So, okay, to account the bad debt recovery, there are 2 steps. Okay, kita mesti buat 2 journal. First is to create the account receivable and secondly is to record the payment. Okay, now we look at how to, we look at the example 5. Okay, financial position for perniagaan masih show the balance of account receivable as at 31st January 2021 amounting 100,000. On 1st February 2021, Encik Nizam has paid 3,000 ringgit of his debt that was already classified as bad debt previously. Tengok Encik Nizam ni tiba-tiba dia bayar 3,000. Okay, atas hutang dia yang sebelum ni kita dah kira sebagai bad debt. Okay, so ini adalah bad debt recovery. So we have 2 accounts to journal. Kita kena buat 2 journal. Okay, so required show the journal entry. Okay, so firstly kita kena wujudkan or to create account receivable or to re-establish the account receivable. Kita kena wujudkan semula account receivable yang kita dah write off tadi. So debit account receivable, credit bad debt recovery. Okay, bad debt recovery, this is for direct write-off method. Okay, so take note, credit bad debt recovery is for direct write-off method. So the narration is to record, re-establish or to create account receivable. Kita wujudkan semula account receivable yang kita dah write off. Okay, and then secondly, barulah kita record the payment. Payment receive. So debit cash, sebab kita dapat cash, dia dah bayar balik dekat kita. And credit accounts receivable. So the direction is to record the cash receipt. So this is for direct write-off method. Okay, the other one is for allowance method. So sama juga mesti ada 2 journal. Okay, firstly is to create the account receivable. Okay, so debit apa? Debit account receivable. Sebab kita nak wujudkan semula account receivable. But credit apa? Credit allowance for doubtful debt. Why allowance for doubtful debt? Because it is allowance method. Okay, so the narration is to record or to re-establish or to create accounts receivable. And then secondly, journal yang kedua, kita nak record the cash receipt. So debit, ini sama, debit cash and credit accounts receivable. Okay, the narration is to record the cash receipt. Okay, so I hope that you will follow. Okay, you will recognize first which method, and then this is how to journal the accounts. Okay. Okay, lastly, the presentation of account receivable in the financial position. Okay, in the financial position, account receivable dekat mana? Is in the asset column kan? Okay, so first of all, kita tulis dululah the tajuk. Okay, for example, syarikatbollywood.com, Statement of Financial Position as at 31st December 2020. Okay. So, okay, at the asset column, okay, the account receivable is at the current asset. Okay, so macam yang kita dah tunjuk tadi, account receivable, for example, 342,500 deduct with the allowance for doubtful debt if they are using the allowance method. Okay, for example, 10,000, so equals to 332,500. Okay, this is how the presentation in the financial statement for accounts receivable. Okay. Okay, presentation of account receivable in financial position is for allowance method only and does not apply to direct write-off method. Okay, sebab direct write-off method tak ada allowance for doubtful debt. So, okay, this format is only apply for allowance method. Yeah. Sebab apa tak ada dekat direct write-off method? Because account receivable has been written off. Okay.
Madam Fizi,
Okay, ya. Yeah.
tiba masanya bagi pelajar untuk tuntut mata kredit ya.
Okay.
Jadi pelajar diminta beri perhatian, nombor yang seterusnya adalah kosong. Saya ulang, nombor yang seterusnya adalah kosong. Terima kasih.
Okay, thank you Madam Lee. Okay. So kita pun dah habis Kita dah habis dah dengan accounting for receivable. So saya ada soalan untuk pop quiz. I hope that student will answer the question in the chat box pada ruangan chat. Okay, there are only 3 questions. Okay, please answer. Okay, firstly, question 1. Under the direct write-off method of accounting for uncollectible account, okay, bad debt is debited. Okay, saya ulang. Under the direct write-off method of accounting for uncollectible account, bad debt expenses is debited. A, when a credit sales is past due, or B, at the end of each accounting period, or C, when an account is determined to be uncollectible, or D, whenever a predetermined amount of credit sales have been made. Okay, choose one, whether A, B or C. Okay, student can answer at the chat box. Okay, kita tunggu.
Okay, ada jawapan daripada pelajar Nurul Husna, dia jawab C.
Okay.
Lepas tu Adrana C juga. Nurin Idina C. Rosaliha C juga.
Okay, so saya nampak macam ramai jawab C kan? Okay, so kita tengok jawapan. Okay, apa maksud dia bad debt expenses is debited apabila when an account is determined as to be uncollectible. Okay, bad debt maksudnya account tidak dapat dikutip, uncollectible. Okay, good. Okay, correct. Your answer is C. The answer is C. Okay, so we move to question number 2. What is the 2 basis for estimating uncollectible accounts? Kalau kita kata estimating tu maksudnya apa? Okay, saya bagi clue. Dia adalah allowance method. So what are the 2 basis for estimating uncollectible accounts? A, percentage of current assets. B, percentage of receivable, percentage of sales. C, percentage of assets and percentage of sales, or D, percentage of receivable and percentage of total revenue. Okay, choose one, A, B, C or D.
Okay, kita ada jawapan daripada pelajar. Majoriti jawab B. Muhammad Adam B. Nurul Syuhaida B. Nur Rabatu B. Okay, Nurul Ashikin B. Dan Fasihah Rosli B.
Okay, so majoriti jawab B tadi saya nampak ada Madam Tina. Madam Tina from College Matrikulasi Perlis. Okay, thank you for support. Madam Tina pun jawab B. Okay, kalau Madam Tina jawab salah, siap Okay, now we look at the answer. Okay, betul. Okay, the answer is B. Kacang je percentage of receivable and percentage of sales. Okay, good student. Good, Madam Tina. Okay, next. Okay, the last question. Under allowance method, the journal entry to write off an uncollectible account is, okay, A, allowance for doubtful debt debit and account receivable credit, or B, the bad debt expenses debit and account receivable credit, or C, accounts receivable debit and allowance for doubtful debt accounts credit, or D, account receivable debit and bad debt expenses credit. Okay, which one? What is the journal entry to write off an uncollectible accounts? Okay, saya bagi clue, bad debt write off ataupun account receivable write off. Okay, which one? Okay, so ada jawapan?
Okey, ada jawapan daripada Muhannabah, dia jawab A.
Okay.
Nur Alia A. Chi Lok Chin A. Azab Muhammad Zuhari A. Muhammad Adam A. Nurul Syuhaida A.
Okay, so saya nampak majority jawab A, ya. Okay, so kita tengok jawapan, ya. Kalau uncollectible account, so debit mestilah A, So debit allowance for doubtful debt and credit account receivable. Okay, good everybody, ya. Okay, so kita pun dah sampai 10:30, ya. So okay, itu saja daripada saya. So I hope everybody will understand and will expert in accounts for receivable. So thank you very much for your supporting and for your focus on this topic. Okay, thank you. So saya serahkan semula kepada moderator kita, Madam Lee.
Okey, terima kasih kepada Madam Fizi atas perkongsian yang sangat bersahaja dan menarik ini. Tahniah diucapkan kepada semua yang setia bersama kelas pada malam ini dari awal sehingga ke saat ini. Untuk makluman, link ECU boleh didapatkan pada ruangan chat. Sila beri perhatian, link tersebut akan tamat tempohnya iaitu 30 minit selepas sesi live ini. Pastikan anda menggunakan sama ada email e-didik ataupun akaun MOE terima sahaja. Kesalahan memasukkan email tidak akan dilayan. Sebagai tanda penghargaan, marilah kita like, subscribe dan share channel presenter kita malam ini, Madam Fizi. Okey, sekarang dijemput ahli-ahli konti kita memberi sepatah dua kata. Kita mula dengan host controller kita dulu. Cikgu Yi, dipersilakan.
Ya, terima kasih Madam Lee. Salam sejahtera kepada semua. Mula-mula sekali saya nak ucapkan tahniahlah kepada Madam Fizi kerana telah menyampaikan satu kelas yang begitu menarik, dan juga tahniah kepada pelajar-pelajar kerana sangat aktif menjawab soalan dan kebanyakan jawapan adalah betul. Jadi cikgu nak menyerulah semua memberikan sokongan kepada Madam Fizi. Sebagai tanda sokongan, sila share, like dan juga subscribe Madam Fizi channel ya. Terima kasih semua.
Okey, terima kasih diucapkan kepada Cikgu Yi. So sekarang dijemput pemerhati kita, Cikgu Yati. Dipersilakan.
Okey, terima kasih Madam Lee. Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera kepada semua pelajar-pelajar yang dikasihi sekalian. Okey, dari penerangan pada Madam Fizi memang sangat jelas dan sangat bermanfaat. Terutamanya perbezaan antara allowance method dengan direct write-off method. Itu sangat penting ya apabila untuk menjawab peperiksaan PSPM. Okey, tahniah kepada Madam Fizi kerana telah menyampaikan maklumat dengan tepat dan bersahaja, dan jangan lupa memberi sokongan kepada Madam Fizi. Okey, terima kasih.
Okey, terima kasih diucapkan kepada Cikgu Yati. Okey, so kelas yang seterusnya adalah pada hari dan waktu yang sama, iaitu pada hari Rabu, 9:30 malam. Okey, sila layari www.academyyoutuber.com untuk dapatkan info terkini dan jadual kelas tuition percuma. Jom kongsikan portal AYU ini kepada rakan-rakan dan guru-guru seluruh Malaysia. Juga diingatkan, semua kelas online percuma ini boleh ditonton semula melalui link yang telah disediakan di portal AYU. Semoga kita mendapat manfaat daripada kelas-kelas yang dijalankan. Sekian, terima kasih dan selamat malam kepada semua. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Wow, banyaknya hadiah menarik menanti anda.
Wah, kini Akademi YouTuber mengambil inisiatif baru di mana memberikan hadiah-hadiah ini secara percuma. Ya, percuma kepada anda semua. Bagaimana caranya? Dengan mengikuti kelas tuition online percuma Akademi YouTuber sambil mengutip mata kredit, anda dapat menukarkannya dengan hadiah-hadiah yang menarik ini. Tunggu apa lagi? Segalanya percuma.
Jangan lepaskan peluang tau. Dah dapat banyak hadiah menarik, takkan nak lepaskan peluang.
Layari www.academyyoutuber.com sekarang untuk maklumat lanjut.
Dibawakan kepada anda